Hello, welcome to the Special Report, your news and views program about geek gaming culture on the internet. Coming up in the show today, Ubisoft starts auto-banning players for using racial and homophobic slurs in Rainbow Six Siege, and they are not playing around. And we're going to be talking about the Forbes TotalBiscuit hit piece, because I have not said my piece about that entire ordeal yet, and though it is something that has gained a lot of attention, this is my channel, this is my show, I want to talk about it, so yeah, we are going to talk about it. My name is JD Shadow, and all of this and the OCRemix track of the day is coming your way right up. Ubisoft has become the first video game publisher to start doing something that a couple of other video game publishers have been discussing amongst themselves for a bit now. They have begun to ban people who are using hate speech, homophobic, and racial slurs being the ones that are most targeted. The bans are seemingly to last about a half hour, being 27 minutes at most. However, that is just for the first offense. If you do that at any point without any other offense on your record, it ends up being a 30-minute ban on your resume. However, second and third offenses are then deemed up to 2 hours, and then after that, Ubisoft has the authority to investigate your account and then just flat out permaban you. This is following an April 2018 blog that stated that their team is working on a creation of an automated system that will censor text chat in-game based on a chat filter list. This will replace words that have been identified as offensive and provide players with a notification that their language was found to be unacceptable. We will also be tracking the number of times players trigger this filter and will take action as necessary for players that are intentionally having a negative impact on other players' gaming experience. The bans prevent a player from playing any aspect of Siege, according to PC Gamer, including terrorist hunt or custom games, meaning that custom games are not exempt from this system being in effect. This is more along the lines of private games, games you play with your friends, and things of that nature. That has garnered some attention among the people who are playing Rainbow Six Siege, because while some people are indeed applauding the change and the action, some people are also saying that it is a little bit far too reaching in the sense that they are targeting also custom games that you are playing with your friends. Now, as far as vitriolic statements are concerned, as far as being banned for saying homophobic and racial slurs and stuff like that, I would say yes, definitely. Let's get to it. Let's curb this sort of toxic behavior that goes on in these online games, especially when you have Blizzard being one of them that has been talking about doing something like this, and Microsoft being the other one. Do you realize how toxic some of those Blizzard games can be? They are exceptional, well-made games, but there are a lot of people within those player bases that will get ultra elitist, they will get ultra whiny, and they will get ultra toxic. They will get ultra vitriolic. That is one of the reasons I had stopped playing WoW, is because it is not only elitist, it can get ultra toxic. You don't have the DPS to handle a pug dungeon or whatever. You are not only kicked out of the group, but you're kicked out of the group after you're getting told how bad you are, in no uncertain terms how bad of a human being they think you are. And I'm not going to go into details about the language they can use, because quite frankly, if you are listening to this story, you probably understand the type of language that people could use. Now, that is not saying the entirety of the player base, the entirety of the community engages in that type of behavior, but more times than not, I have found myself on the receiving end of such things being thrown at me, especially if they hear the sound of my voice or see what I look like. That actually does go on. And of course, we all know the things that we've heard on Microsoft Xbox Live. We don't really have to go into detail about that because people have talked about that to death. And this thing with Ubisoft, they're taking action against those people who use outright vitriolic behavior and language. Yeah, you're going to get smacked down, and that's good on them. However, let me play devil's advocate for just a second, because you know what? I like to take an issue and look at both sides of this, because the one thing that I keep harboring about every time I see a system like this go into effect, or somebody saying, hey, we're going to start targeting these types of things, is you have to define what you consider a racial slur, or an ethnic slur, or a homophobic slur. Of course, the N-word, yeah, you're going to get smacked down if you use that. And I would have absolutely no sympathy for you if you would go on that route. Though you can argue that we give certain words way too much power by censoring them, and you can no doubt use those words in a way that are not racist or homophobic, but that is a topic for a completely different video, because that delves into sensitive subject matter. But lest we forget what we have just become aware of, the issue about Jessica Price and what she considered to be an attack on her gender. As far as I am aware, this whole Rainbow Six Siege system is particularly automated. As far as I'm aware, and there is nothing to suspect that this is a human on the other end of who is giving out the bans. This is a robot that is doing this, at least for the first, second, or third offense. This is not a human that's on the other end deciding whether or not it deserves a ban or not. This is an automated system, and we all know how those things work, do we, YouTube? We know exactly how well those things work, which is not that well. Who's to say that the robot is not going to malfunction, that it's going to false flag something? And furthermore, to touch upon more so of the Jessica Price situation, who is programming that robot, and what kind of words is it going to look out for? We need a firm list of what exactly is considered a slur based upon what they believe is one. Because what is stopping Ubisoft from taking it a bit too far? What is stopping someone else from abusing this system and just saying, hey, this guy said this or that, in order to get someone they didn't like banned? There is a lot of questions I have about this system, and those are questions that I believe should be answered. I have no problem with Ubisoft taking action against things like homophobic and racial slurs, and for that matter, slurs of any kind against any minority. But we have to be careful when we implement stuff like this, because what is stopping someone from abusing that system, and what is stopping the system from malfunctioning one way or the other? If it doesn't catch someone, or if it catches somebody who didn't actually do anything wrong, then that is a system that needs to be addressed. Now, I am not quite sure what I feel about the custom games being targeted as well, because here's what I figure. Yeah, it is their servers, it is still their game, and they should have the right to police the game in the way that they feel they should police their game, as long as it's fair to all sides. They shouldn't just use their power to censor other people who have a different viewpoint, which is something else that could be considered hate speech by Ubisoft, and that might be something that needs to be addressed if it's different political viewpoints that might be triggered by this system. That is also something that should not be tolerated, regardless of what political leaning you have. But I also believe that there is a hint of a right to privacy in these matters. When you have a custom game, when you have games with friends, the mood is somewhat relaxed. You understand that friends who are playing your game seem to have more rights than those people who you just meet randomly. Whereas you might tolerate somebody saying an F-bomb in a private setting, you might not tolerate it in a public setting because you know those friends are not really racist or homophobic, but they will use those words in a different setting or in a different terminology or with a different meaning behind it, or be self-deprecating toward themselves. Stuff like that that might also be caught with this system. And apparently from how Ubisoft is responding to tweets about this, it seems that they don't care where you say it, how you say it, or why you say it. If it is the word, it doesn't matter the context of it, it is only the content. And that may lead to some interesting situations as well, because yeah, we do talk about the N-word with those types of things, but what if there was a black person who was using the soft GA form of the word toward another black person? In this sense, yeah, that's also going to get a ban, and the Ubisoft servers and the Ubisoft people are saying, yeah, that's also something we want to catch. Is that appropriate for them to actually do so? Again, it is their game, it is their servers, but I also worry about the invasion of privacy here. I also worry that maybe they might be overreaching in that sense, because yeah, when you have a custom game, that kind of changes the rules a little bit in the mindset of people who are in that game. It is kind of a fine line that you are walking in this sense, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence about that, because I understand both sides of that. I understand that there are times when you don't want to worry about those kinds of rules because you're with people who really do know you, and they know you better than some random person in a pub group. So yeah, I'm interested to know some of the answers to these questions. I do think this is a good system, but we need to be careful about how well it is implemented to stop false flagging and to make sure it is working as it should to get rid of vitriolic behavior while not infringing on privacy or without the abuse of such power being in the hands of people who should not have it. And let's now get into something that I'm pretty sure you've heard about by now, but I wanted to talk in length about the situation concerning the TotalBiscuit Forbes hit piece. Yes, this was a hit piece. And of course, the subsequent fallout from it. And again, a person who seemingly wants to double down, triple down, quadruple down on just about everything that they have said. And this is seemingly worse than just about any sliming of TotalBiscuit's name after his passing that we have ever seen. In case you do not know what is going on here, Forbes contributor, I couldn't say she is a contributor because I don't know if she's actually being paid by Forbes on a regular basis. She just is somebody who posts articles for Forbes from time to time. Fruzina Urdo, I don't know if I'm getting her name right. I'm pretty sure someone is going to say how you properly pronounce her name, but she posted a very lengthy article about TotalBiscuit and the collateral damage of, yeah, you can actually read for yourself in that screen there. I am not going to go into detail about what she's bringing up because, quite frankly, just the mentioning of that word is enough to drive some people absolutely crazy. And I don't want to get in trouble, but you can no doubt read what she brought up. Now, it goes into stark detail about how she thinks that someone who she interviewed, who happens to be a close personal friend of John TotalBiscuit Bain, is in the wrong with what he said, because quite frankly, a person who is randomly talking about him and posting a hit piece on him knows a lot more than a close personal friend of the person you are trying to do a story on. But this gets even better as she falsely accuses him of being the person who legitimized an internet hate mob against women in gaming, which is factually incorrect, as a TwitLonga post that he did prior to the crux of things starting to take hold in 2014. Keep in mind, that's 2014. This is 2018. The subjects of harassment online in online gaming and the subject of having transparency and consumer advocacy and the elimination of nepotism within gaming media all still exist, are all still important, and all should still be talked about. But the one little thing that this is bringing up stopped in 2015, and it was not actually a group. It was the name of a controversy that someone was giving to a controversy. There was nothing more to that. Yes, there were some groups that actually did engage in harassment of minorities online, and that was something that was condemned throughout. But there were also people who were understandably upset about the nepotism in gaming media, which is something that has been taking place long before it blew up like it did. The problem was that because the media was the ones being targeted, they knew exactly what to do to counter it, which is to put everybody under a box, under the umbrella, and just label everybody as the worst, without even addressing the issue of disclosure and nepotism in gaming media and in other media as well. As you no doubt understand that Sean Hannity got in trouble recently because Trump's lawyer was also one of his lawyers. And yeah, Hannity was trying to do some mental gymnastics to try to get out of that hole. So yeah, it is prevalent in all forms of media. But I digress. The article itself was trying to give him praise while still calling him out on things that he was never a part of. Anybody who has watched his content, anybody who has even glanced over his content will know otherwise. But it is the last paragraph that is getting a lot of attention here. Now, she does state that TotalBiscuit's name was not mentioned at E3 at all, and I have to say that is something that I am disappointed about, and at the very least it should have been mentioned. Though I do disagree that it probably won't be brought up at the Game Awards show. That is probably some place that is more of an appropriate time to actually bring that up. Maybe give a Lifetime Achievement Award to him. Hint, hint. The last sentence in this article states that clearly Bane didn't do enough to atone for his perceived sins, and if there is a lesson in all of this, it is that one must make peace and settle any internet beef you have with feminists while you're still living. History is written by the victors after all. And then after concern trolling, saying, why are you showing tweets that are clearly celebrating John Bane's death? Jenna Bane can see those things, not realizing that, hey, she can see this article. Apparently she was already aware of this article because she was contacted by the author saying wife and CEO of all media related to TotalBiscuit did not respond to requests for comment. Of course she didn't, because why would she comment to a hit piece, which I will link in the description below this video. You can read it for yourself. It is long. Now, of course, seeing as this is a guy who has impacted the lives and the personalities of a lot of people, yours truly included, a lot of people had responded not in kind to this author and the story in question. One particular person who, despite what the author said, did actually respond. That was Jenna Bane, and she responded in the classiest way you could probably do so, knowing what was said, saying, quote, each breath today is one that TotalBiscuit was never offered. I see you. I don't care about your friends, family, or following. I see only you. I wept, not for my husband, but for humanity when strangers celebrated his death. Now I grieve for compassion as his legacy burns. And that was the gist of a lot of people who were upset about this article. Not only did it drag TotalBiscuit's name through the mud, a piece of mud that he was never interested, nor did he actually create, but trying to get his grieving widow to respond to this hit piece. Why would she do that? But apparently the author does not know when enough is enough, and she has continued to push and push for not only Jenna Bane to respond, but she has also targeted other people who have called her out on this stuff, including a couple of YouTubers who have said some things of their own here. Now let's get to what she said about Jenna Bain, saying if anything this would have been a great opportunity for Jenna Bain to come forward and say, no, don't harass this digital culture reporter, don't dox, try to get her fired. That's not what my husband stood for. I don't want harassment associated with my husband's brand. You actually drug her into this whole thing, and you have doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on everything, and people are calling you out on it, and you're calling that harassment. That is not harassment. That is somebody issuing you a receipt. Now, vitriolic natures are not to be tolerated, but that's not what's happening here. People are calling you out on your falsehoods, and instead of trying to say that wasn't the right way to go, that you can criticize while still paying homage, paying some respect to someone's family, you are deciding that you are just going to not know when to stop. But she has also targeted a lot of other people who have defended TotalBiscuit, and I'm pretty sure once she sees this, I'm probably going to be next on our hit list, because she has targeted Liana Kurtzner, who has been somebody who has defended TotalBiscuit even though she has not agreed completely with what he has said. Another YouTuber by the name of Monday Matt, who Fruzina has said that a video that he posted in 2014 that many say was the genesis to everything going down in 2014 was because of a community content guideline strike, when it was actually a DMCA strike, and she has not corrected it, and apparently she is not caring to trying to rewrite the facts here. And I'm pretty sure there are a couple of other people, including Sky Williams, who she has had traded a few barbs with now. Just about every single person who is trying to respond to her saying you were on the wrong in doing this, she has tried to find some way to defend herself, and that has made a lot of people post videos and post articles saying how she was completely wrong. Let me add to this for just a second, because Fruzina, it is not about your gender, it is not about anything social standing that you have. This is about you going on to Forbes and using their white space, using their internet storage to post that drivel. Regardless of what you think about the events that happened during that time, he was not a part of it. He was citing on transparency, on consumer advocacy, and nothing more. He was going in hard. He did not lead anything of the sort that you're saying that he did, period. End of story. You cannot point to a single time in which he actually called on the harassment of anybody, male, female, or anybody in between. You cannot sit there and say that he has done that. No more than you can go and try to get an answer out of his grieving widow, who, by the way, she does have a son. They did create a life into this world, and do you have any idea what he's going through? He is somebody who's now without a father, who was more or less a loving, caring father to his kid, who, by the way, has gotten death threats before, according to TotalBiscuit. He has said that before as well. And what you're doing is just inviting people to do this more to her and to him. You want to talk about your own personal harassment? Fine, because no one is going to condone that. No sane person is going to condone that. But at the same time, do not call people calling you out as harassment, because they are rightfully doing so. You hold personal responsibility for what you write, and if you can't handle that, then you should not write what you are writing. I am saying this right now. I'm ready to accept personal responsibility for what I say. Are you prepared to do the same? Obviously, you have showed that you are not, because you continue to prod at this issue. It is okay if you don't agree with every single thing that he has said. I did not agree with every single thing that he said, but I'm not going to disrespect him like this, because I have a bit more of class than that. And at the end of the day, he fought for things that I too want to see more of. I want to see people be more honest. I want to see game companies and game manufacturers manufacturers and game journalists be more forthcoming and more honest with the people who they should be serving, which is the consumers. I want for the game industry to be better at handling things like harassment online, but I want them to do that in the right way. You have to balance out those two things. Calling for consumer advocacy is not harassment, no matter how much you're trying to equate the two things. That is a false equivalency. That is two completely different topics. They want you to be held accountable for the things you are doing, which is dragging people who had nothing to do with any of this into the discussion. What are you trying to gain from dragging Jenna into this whole situation? What do you have to gain? What is in this for you? What do you have to gain with attacking someone who is deceased that was respected by a lot of people? And what do you have to gain from saying, hey, you know this person who probably knows TotalBiscuit a lot more than I do? Well, he's wrong, and I know more than he does about why he's wrong, and here's my reasons as to why. That is not something that I would want to see out of somebody who I read on a daily basis. Now, I'm not reading your stuff on a daily basis, and I'm not going to plan on reading your stuff on a daily basis because you keep going down into this rabbit hole. And to this point, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get out of it. You have to stop. Why are you continuing to push this issue? Why are you continuing to push that there is a there in your statements? Those who are the victors are those who actually are remembered long after they are gone, who had made a profound impact on things that they were a part of, even after they have passed. You are not going to be one of them. You are not going to make an impact on any industry doing stuff like this. There is a thing called empathy, and even if you were wronged or felt wrong, there is a thing called empathy and compassion and a bit of forgiveness, and you are forgetting all of that. You really need to stop. And I did not want to make a video about this, quite frankly, because I felt as though everybody said what needed to be said, but seeing as how he was an idol to me, I felt as though I needed to say my 2 cents, and I wanted to bring up the one person who is barely getting a mention in all of this, which is that poor teenager who is now without a father and has to also read all of this crap. That is also something that should not be. That's going to do it for this edition of the Special Report. Thanks as always for watching. If you like what you see, like and subscribe for more geek gaming culture, and be sure to ring that bell to get notified when I post new videos. Before I go, let's give you the OCRemix track of the day to more or less honor the person who we were just talking about, TotalBiscuit. And let's give you not only a very good remix track, but one from a game that I think is one of the best Final Fantasy games in the entire series, Final Fantasy VI. This one is called Enchanted Esper from Final Fantasy VI. It is a remix of Another World of Beasts, one of the tracks that plays when you're in an underground cave. This particular remixer has been kind enough for me to use his remixes in my own Special Report music mix. His name is Protricity, and he is the one responsible for the remix track to the Earthworm Jim Anything But Tangerines music that I had used a long time on the Special Report. And if you like the Special Report tracks that I had put up, you can thank him for those, because he is the one responsible for most, if not all, of those tracks. And this is another one that he had done, which I do believe is a terrific rendition of the Final Fantasy VI cave tracks. Here's from Final Fantasy VI, Enchanted Esper, Another World of Beasts. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.